At 14:23 hours in MH60, Romeo was tearing south over the Caribbean at 144 knots toward a go-fast boat that was about to learn why smuggling is a terrible career choice. The Romeo had launched from a U.S. destroyer 12 minutes earlier with 4 AGM-114R Hellfire missiles. Enough firepower to solve this problem 4 times over, though they would only need one if everything went according to plan, but the weapons panel was already showing amber warnings on rail 1 and unknown to the crew. Something had been eating at the missile racks for 6 weeks straight, and what happened in the next 8.3 seconds showcases the deadliest precision strike technology ever deployed from a helicopter. The helicopter dove through 2,000 feet with rotors beating the humid Caribbean air as it closed on a white wake cutting across blue water 8 miles ahead. The Go-Fast was running hard with its outboards pushing at 45 knots. Riding so low in the water, its hull was nearly submerged. Classic sign of carrying too much weight for its own good. Through the FLIR display, those engines glowed white-hot against the cooler ocean, where the sensor operator kept centered in his crosshairs, despite the helicopter bouncing through afternoon thermals. The boat started its evasion pattern at 7 miles hard right, then immediate reversal left carving. S-turns that threw spray 30 feet in the air using standard Smuggler tactics when they realized the helicopter closing in on them was not turning away. Against police helicopters in South America, it might have worked, but against the U.S. Navy, there was not a snowball's chance in hell it would. The Romeo descended through 1,500 feet, pushing through pockets of turbulence where the Caribbean heat created invisible columns of rising air. 3-foot swells below meant the boat kept disappearing behind walls of water. Visible for 2 seconds, hidden for 1 visible again. And the sensor operator had to constantly adjust the FLIR turret fighting to maintain lock through spray clouds that bloomed white-hot on thermal whenever the boat crested a wave. At 5 miles, the afternoon sun hit that perfect angle where the ocean turned into a mirror with glare overwhelming the visual spectrum, forcing complete reliance on thermal imaging. Meanwhile, humidity was building 85% and climbing, which would scatter laser energy like fog scatters headlights, making it more difficult to achieve a good lock. The Romeo pushed lower down to 1,000 feet, where the air got thick and salty with spray from the waves below already coating the windscreen, creating a film that would only get worse. 3 miles now, and the Romeo's flight computers began taking over to hold a rock-steady hover, despite the gusts trying to push them sideways. The weapons panel showed Rail 1 red, Rail 2 amber, Rails 3 and 4 green, meaning 2 definitely good missiles, maybe 3. The sensor operator centered the crosshairs on the boat's engine compartment, with the laser designator ready to paint the target. Above, the P-8 confirmed no other vessels in the engagement zone, while the destroyer sent clearance to engage. At 14:31 hours, the Romeo descended to 500 feet, and the pilot discovered why the Navy preferred dropping torpedoes on submarines over shooting missiles at boats, because the afternoon sun was creating a glare pattern that turned the ocean into a mirror while the FLIR struggled to maintain lock through the humidity. This is because humid air acted like a dirty window, scattering and absorbing energy where the laser beam hit the water surface, and some of it reflected away at angles that would make a pool player jealous. The boat's wet fiberglass hull scattered the beam differently than dry surfaces, creating what the manual called suboptimal return characteristics, or as pilots say, a pain in the rear end. The laser energy that made it back to the missile seeker was maybe 30% of what left the helicopter where the Hellfire needed at least 15% return signal strength to maintain lock, and anything below that the missile would go ballistic, becoming an unguided rocket. Right now, they were hovering at 30%, safe, but not comfortable with humidity and spray constantly trying to drag that number into the danger zone. The NAAS 44 turret under the nose was fighting to keep the laser centered on target, and this was not some simple point-and-shoot system. The turret was running predictive algorithms that calculated where the boat would be, not where it was, where the auto track was working barely, because at 3 miles out flying 140 knots, they needed to hold a laser beam on a target the size of a parking space. The computer was averaging the boat's position over time, building what engineers called a track quality metric that told the crew how confident the system was, and right now it was showing 82%. Good enough for government work, but that missing 18% was the difference between a direct hit and an embarrassing miss. This helicopter's computer systems were now in overdrive, where 4 independent mission processors were running the same calculations, simultaneously comparing answers 20 times per second. If one computer said fire and the other said wait, they would vote. And the voting was not simple majority rules, but used something called Byzantine fault tolerance, designed to work even if one computer was lying. Each computer sent its calculation into the other three, then each computer compared what it calculated with what. The others said they calculated, and if computer number 3 said everyone else agreed when they did not, it got flagged as faulty and ignored. It was democracy, but with the ability to detect and ignore liars. But today, all 4 computers were unanimous about one thing. The moisture and rail one had crossed into the red zone. The problem with salt in the weapons rack was not just rust, but that salt. Crystals acted like tiny wires connecting things that never should touch. Pin 7 was the trigger, pin 8 was the ground, and when salt filled up between them, it could create a path for electricity to flow where it should not, making the missile fire by itself, or worse, refuse to fire when you needed it to. The Navy had spent millions trying to seal everything with special coatings and waterproof barriers. But salt water was like that relative who always finds a way into your house, no matter how many locks you install. The pilots switched to Rail 2, triggering a complete built-in test that checked 147 parameters in less than a second. The handshake between helicopter and missile was like a very fast, very important conversation where the helicopter sent an authentication code essentially asking, "Are you a real Hellfire?" And the missile responded with its serial number and status code saying, "Yes, I am Hellfire, such and all my systems are green." Then came the real test, where the helicopter sent a stream of test data through the missile chess processor to verify could handle targeting information. And the missile had to respond correctly within 100 milliseconds, or the helicopter would assume it was broken. Every missile has to pass 3 critical tests before it can launch. Test 1, can the missile actually leave the rail, where the tiny explosive charge that pushes it away has to be dry and working. Test 2, can the missile see where its infrared seeker needs to be cooled to minus 200 degrees or it is blind? And test 3, can the helicopter talk to the missile where data and power have to flow perfectly through the connection, or the missile will not know where to go? This Hellfire passed all 3 with green lights across the board. The pilot was monitoring the stores management display, showing the status of all 4 missiles, watching for any red flags, while the co-pilot had his finger hovering over the emergency jettison button, because if the missile hung on the rail, with its motor burning, they had about 2 seconds to punch it off before things got exciting in all the wrong ways. The sensor operator was watching laser return strength, ready to increase power if the beam started scattering too much. 3 sets of eyes, 3 different screens, all watching for the hundreds of things that could go wrong in the next 10 seconds. The store's management computer ran one final check, sending test signals down the data bus to the missile. And the Hellfire's internal computer responded with what the crew called all greens and grins, meaning every subsystem operational. At 14:35 hours, the pilot squeezed the trigger and held his breath. Not because he needed to, but because 14 months of similar training had taught him that everything could still go wrong at the last second. The cartridge fired, pushing the Hellfire away from the helicopter. And for 0.3 of a second, that felt like 3 hours, the missile fell away from the rail, which was critical because if that rocket motor ignited, while still attached, the exhaust would torch straight through the helicopter belly. Then the rocket motor ignited with 500 pounds of thrust and physics took over. The moment the missile left, the Romeo crew shifted to post-launch procedures, where the pilot immediately banked left 15 degrees in standard defensive maneuver in case anyone below had delusions of shooting back. The missile pulled 18 Gs, accelerating through 600 miles per hour, where its autopilot immediately calculated intercept geometry using what is called proportional navigation. Proportional navigation is beautiful math that sounds complicated, but is not where the missile measures how fast the line between it and the target is rotating. And if that line is not rotating, they are on a collision course. But if it is rotating, the missile turns to reduce the rotation rate to 0. It is the same instinct a dog uses to catch a frisbee, except the dog does not have to solve differential equations 50 times per second. The missile's computer was calculating the exact lead angle needed, accounting for wind drift, gravity, and the Earth's rotation, because yes, at 995 miles per hour, even the planet spin matters. The Romeo's laser was painting a spot on the boat's center mass, sending out pulses of light 1,688 times per second. And the missile seeker head, now cooled to temperatures that would make Antarctica jealous, could see that laser sparkle through the humid air that was trying its best to scatter the beam. The Hellfire climbed to 3,000 feet in a perfect arc training speed for altitude, and at the top, it nosed over into a 35-degree dive. The Romeo was now in what pilots called the "oh crap" window, too late to abort, too early to confirm impact. Where if the missile lost laser lock, now it would go ballistic, which sounds cool but actually means it becomes an expensive lawn dart that might hit anything or nothing. Inside the Hellfire, 3 different guidance systems were arguing about the best path to the target. The inertial system using laser gyros spinning at 40,000 RPM knew exactly how the missile was moving. The GPS receiver knew exactly where it was in space, and the semi-active laser seeker knew exactly where that sparkle of coded light was bouncing off the boat's hull. A computer smaller than a shoebox was taking all 3 inputs and solving equations that would make a physics professor cry, updating the solution 100 times per second. The control section was the real magic, where the 4 fins at the front can move 20 degrees in any direction faster than a hummingbird swings with electric motors, the size of pill bottles driving these fins each movement. Precisely calculated to keep the missile on target even as wind tried to push it sideways and gravity tried to pull it down. After 8.3 seconds of flight, the crush switch detected impact and started the detonation sequence in exactly 1 millisecond. The explosion generated 200 psi of overpressure, enough to turn the fiberglass hull into confetti and the engines into modern art. The FLIR showed a white-hot bloom that saturated the sensors, then cleared to reveal a debris field spreading across 100 meters of suddenly very empty ocean. In the Romeo, 3 separate confirmation systems registered the hit where the FLIR showed the thermal explosion. The laser return signal went to 0, because there was no more boat to bounce off of, and the radar showed multiple small contacts where one large contact used to be. After confirming battle damage assessment, the Romeo turned north toward the destroyer, having completed America's part in fighting climate change 1 artificial reef at a time. This strike showcased why modern precision weapons are terrifying. 4 computers voting on targeting solutions, Byzantine fault tolerance detecting lying processors, proportional navigation solving physics 50 times per second, and a warhead delivering 200 psi exactly where intended after 8.3 seconds of flight. If this technical breakdown of Hellfire strike operations fascinated you, smash subscribe for more real military technology analysis. Comment which impressed you most: the Byzantine fault tolerance voting system or the proportional navigation math. Remember, in modern warfare, precision is not about explosive power. It is about every system working perfectly from laser designator to detonation sequence. And when it all works, you get 8.3 seconds from launch to debris field with no room for error and no second chances.